Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 11. We want to presentation chapter 19 about teaching writing. Okay, the first is research on second language writing. Trends of teaching of writing in ESL and other foreign language have not surprisingly coincided with those of the teaching of other skills, especially listening and speaking. Teachers learn more and more about how to teach fluency, not just accuracy, how to use authentic text and context in the classroom, how to focus on the purpose of linguistic communications, and how to capitalize on learners' intrinsic motive to learn. Over the past of few decades of research on teaching writing to second language learners, a number of issues have appeared, some of which remain controversial in spite of reams of data on second language writing. Here is the brief look at some of those issues. The first is composing versus writing. A simplistic view of writing would assume that written language is simply the graphic representations of spoken language, and that written performance is much like oral performance, the only difference lying in graphic instead of auditory signals. Fortunately, no one holds this view today. The process of writing requires an entirely different set of competency and is fundamentally different from speaking in ways that have already been reviewed in the last chapter. The performance and distance of writing, coupled with the unique rhetorical conventions, indeed make writing as different from speaking as swimming is from walking. Okay, the number two is process versus product. Recognition of the compositional nature of writing has changed the face of writing classes. A half a century ago, writing teachers were mostly concerned with the final product of writing: the essay, the report, the study, and what the product should look like. Compositions were supposed to meet certain standard of prescribed English rhetorical styles and reflect accurate grammar and be organized in conformity with what the audience would consider to be conventional. There is nothing inherently wrong with attention to any of the above criteria. They are still the concerns of writing teachers. But in due course of time, we become better attuned to the advantage given to learners when they were seen as creators of language, when they were allowed to focus on content and message, and when their own individual intrinsic motives were put at the center of learner. We began to develop what is now termed the process approach to writing instructions. Process approach to much of the following adapted from c. 1986. The number one is focus on the process of writing that leads to the final writing product. Number two is help student readers to understand their own composing process. Number three, help them to build repertoires of strategies for rewriting, drafting, and rewriting. The next is give students time to write and rewrite. Place central importance of the process of revision. The next is let students discover what they want to say as they write. Give student feedback throughout the composing process, not just on the final product, as they attempt to bring their expressions closer and closer to intonation. The next, encourage feedback from both the instructor and peers. Include individual conference between teachers and students during the process of composition. Perhaps you can personally appreciate what it means to be asked to write something, say a letter to an editor in an article for a newsletter, a paper for a course you are taking, and to allow the very process of putting ideas down on paper to transform throughout into words to sharpen your main ideas, to give them structure and coherent organization. Okay, that's all for me. The next presentation will be delivered by my friends. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nizam Masuri. I'm from Group 11. I want to explain about contrastive rhetoric. In 1966, an article was published by Robert Kaplan, which has been the subject of discussion and debate ever since. Kaplan's thesis argues that different languages and their cultures have different patterns of written discourse. According to Kaplan, English discourse is schematically described as straight lines, Semitic writing in zigzag formation, Oriental written discourse in spiral lines, and so on. The point of Kaplan's conclusion about how we write is that English learners have certain predisposition which come from their native language about how to organize their writing, and another learners will find it difficult, encounter some difficulty in learning to write English discourse because of cultural differences. In recent years, new research studies have appeared that tackle the issue of contrastive rhetoric. According to Corner, the theory of contrastive rhetoric is influenced by more than first language patterns, factors such as linguistic relativity, theory of rhetoric, text linguistics, discourse types and genres, literacy, and translation all contribute toward a comprehensive theory of contrastive rhetoric. Number 4, differences between L1 and L2 or L2. There are many differences between the two. As Silva, 1993, clearly demonstrated in a comprehensive survey of L2 writing. Silva found that L2 writers did less planning and that they were less fluent or used fewer words, less accurate, made more errors, and less effective in stating goals and organizing material. Differences in using appropriate grammatical and rhetorical convention and lexical variety were also found, among other features. Okay, thank you. I think that's all. Next. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you for the times. I will continue explain number 5 about authenticity. Another issue in teaching of writing surrounds the question of how much of our classroom writing is real writing. That is, how authentic are the classrooms writing exercise that we ask students to perform. One could address this question by asking how much writing if the average college educated person in Western society actually does, and what kind of writing. In school, writing is a way of life. Without some ability to express yourself in writing, you don't pass the course. Another way to look at the authenticity issue in classroom writing is to distinguish between real writing and display writing. The real writing, as explained by Anne Rimes 1991, is writing when the reader doesn't know the answer and genuinely wants information. In many academic or school contexts, however, if the instructor is the sole reader, writing is primarily for the display of a student's knowledge. Written exercise, short answer, and other writing in test situation is instance of display writing. And the next number 6 is the role of the teacher. The role of the teacher must be one of facilitator and coach, not an authoritative director and arbiter. This facilitative role of the writing teachers has inspired research on the role of the teacher as a respondent to student writing. As a facilitator, the teacher offers guidance in helping students be engaged in thinking process of composing, but in a spirit of respect for student opinion must not impose his or her own thoughts on student writing. And these six categories comprise just a few of the many intriguing current question in teaching writing. And the next is types of written language. Where some 30 odd types of written language, from as you consider an ESL class that you might be teaching. How many of these types of writing will your student be likely to produce themselves? Those types that they will indeed need, either for further study of English or for their ultimate academic or vocational goals, should then become the prime focus of real writing in your classroom. I think enough.